Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday, February 9, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Thanks for joining us tonight, and for those of you joining us online, appreciate you being with us virtually as well. We'll go ahead and get started by reading our roll, please.
Council members Kiley.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Starr. Brecky.
Here.
Erickson. Here. Jensen.
Here.
All right, Councilors Selberg, Sale, and Brecky are with us telephonically tonight. With us to give our invocation is Pastor Randall Gehring from Our Savior's Lutheran. He's a regular here. We always thank you for being here, sir. And so I'd ask that you rise for that invocation and then stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I invite you to pray with me. Good and gracious God, tonight we give you thanks for your abundant blessings, for life itself, for providing what we need to fulfill our callings, for daily bread, and for friendship. Thank you for your love that sustains us, your grace that shapes us, and your faithfulness that gives us hope and courage to face and overcome adversity. Tonight, you have assembled these public servants to engage the holy work of governing our beloved city. We humbly ask that you grant them wisdom to govern amid conflicting interests and divisive issues, patience with each other and their respective constituencies, a righteous passion to serve the common good, a keen thirst for justice and peace, confidence in the gifts you have given them as leaders, and faith to trust in your guidance. As they take up each item on their agenda tonight, work your will in and through them. Remind them of your constant presence, your promise to provide in our time of need, and your desire that all might experience the fullness of life. We pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Should we note again when your next distribution is? Okay. All right, I'll note for the record, Councilor Starr is here too, so welcome. We have all 8 of our councilors with us, and we'll move on to item 4 is our consent agenda, and look for any changes or a motion on that.
Move approval. Approve. Second, Jensen.
All right, motion approved by Kiley, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Are there any changes here? Discussion. All right, hearing none, let's take a vote on that, please.
Council members Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson. Jensen.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. We'll move on to item 26, which is the approval of our regular agenda. I'd look for a motion here.
Move to approve. Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Jensen. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, let's vote on that, please.
Council members Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Jensen.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. And before we move on with our regular agenda, I just want to quickly review public input for our agenda items that will follow here. For regular agenda items, comments are limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item that is under consideration at that time only. During general public input, towards the end of the meeting, comments will be no more than 3 minutes per person, and comments are limited to topics which did not appear earlier in the agenda, as comments will have already been received for those items. So with that being said, we'll move on to our next item, item 27.
A second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 30, City Council, Subchapter Naming Facilities.
Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Now that we're at second reading, I would be remiss if I didn't say this has been a very collaborative effort, and I want to make sure that I thank everyone that has been involved, including the council, finance, planning and development services, Parks and Rec, the libraries, the pavilion, the zoo, and the Denny Sanford Premier Center, making these changes and coming up with a way that this proposed ordinance provides the flexibility for all of our partners to allow them to better compete for private dollars in an increasingly competitive environment while maintaining city control and oversight of the naming process. Again, this ordinance really goes through and does a couple of things. It distinguishes between naming and sponsorship, requires a naming agreement when a significant donation is involved, and then the naming agreement requirements, it specifies who's financially responsible for the donor name changes, inclusion of language on how to cure a material breach by the named person or organization when its actions may reflect poorly on the city or city property, and a termination date of the agreement that's required unless the council finds a compelling reason to do an agreement in perpetuity. Again, I'd like to thank all the people. We spent quite a bit of time rehashing this and making that sure our partners have the tools that they need to be competitive, and at the same time protecting the citizens' assets. So again, thank you to everyone, and if there's questions after input, I'd be glad to do that.
All right, thank you, Councilor. First, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item tonight? All right, councilors, let's get a motion on the floor and then we can see if there's discussion.
I'd move to approve.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion by Starr, seconded by Brecky to approve this item. Is there a discussion amongst the council here? All right, hearing none on this item, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Jensen.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 28, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 53, Publicly Owned Treatment Works, General Provisions. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16, 2021. Sponsor, Mayor.
Good evening, Kurt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Assistant City Engineer Kurt Peppel. The next 4 items, 28 through 31, all deal with some public works related ordinance updates. I'm going to kind of highlight 28, 30, and 31 during this section just to kind of cover them all at one time. Back in December, we were in front of you at an informational meeting and really did a more in-depth presentation with the intent to bring these back after the first of the year. Ordinances, high-level general regulations providing residents, saying that we will provide roads, water, sewer, drainage, street lights, etc. They are reviewed periodically and updated accordingly. Part of that process is reviewing with the and getting recommendations from the Infrastructure Review Advisory Board, or as a lot of people know it as IRAB. IRAB is advisory to the mayor regarding a number of items, and the first bullet there, fees and regulations. The ordinance are the regulation piece of this. Infrastructure Review Advisory Board, just a quick list. You've seen this slide before. This group makes up the Infrastructure Review Advisory Board. The ordinance update timeline. The project was initiated in the fourth quarter of 2019. Public Works staff, along with HDR as a consulting engineer in town, helped us walk through the ordinances, update language, making sure that we weren't contradicting anywhere. That group, city staff and HDR, started meeting with a subcommittee in the fall of 2020. And those, we got the right people in the room with the contractors, the design engineers, manufacturers, developers, and really had a good conversation with them about the changes. And then that group brought the recommendations to the actual IRAB board in December of 2020, and IRAB recommended approval. We did do an informational on December 8th of 2020, which I referenced. And then tonight we are here for the first reading with the intent of second reading next week. The ordinances that we're looking at are chapters 50 for the utilities general, 53 for publicly owned treatment works, and chapter 59 was the water department regulations, which is a new ordinance. The water department was located within chapter 50, and creating a new ordinance just felt like it was a better location for that information. Mainly housekeeping items. It was just cleaning up some language that hadn't been done in a while. Some minor substantive updates. Again, those were all vetted out at the Infrastructure Review Advisory Board. Really no questions or concerns. They did a good job of taking care of that up front. And then once again, chapter 50 moved to chapter 59. I do have the subject matter experts here with me tonight, Ryan Johnson with the sanitary sewer and Nick Borns with water and lights. Those two gentlemen did a great job again working with that subcommittee of IRAB, really got the right people in the room, got the questions answered and issues taken care of before we even took it to the board for recommendation and approval. So again, we are here for the first reading tonight, and I'd happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item tonight? All right, counselors, do you have any questions for Kurt or Ryan or Nick on this? All right, I'd look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16.
So moved, Jensen.
Second, Kylie.
All right, motion by Jensen, seconded by Kylie on that. Any discussion here? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 29.
Good evening, Mayor.
We'll read it in the record first.
Sorry, Trent. First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by moving Section 50.023G to Chapter 51, Utility Rates and Charges, and amending Section 51.050 of Chapter 51, Utility Rates and Charges. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16, 2021. Sponsor, Mayor.
Trent, you ready to rock?
Sorry about that. I was ready.
Go ahead, man.
Trent Lubbers, Office of Public Works, just here to talk about a couple of changes in Chapter 51, which is the ordinance related to rates. The first change is a move from Chapter 50.023 to Chapter 51. It really has to do with the collection provision, which we believe belongs in the rate section. There's no change in the language at all. It's just really just a geographic change to the right place in the ordinance. The second changes are related to a rate class that we have called John Morrell and Company rates, Section 51.050. And that rate was developed using a cost of service model. The City of Sioux Falls develops all its rates based on the cost it takes to serve that particular individual class of customer, whether it's residential, commercial, and in this case, the John Morrell rate. looking at this rate, this cost of service principle really applies to other potential businesses that may qualify for that. So what we're doing is really proposing a title change and adding some criteria to this rate class so that if any other businesses future or existing businesses may qualify, we have that rate criteria in place. So the first change is really just a title change from John Morrell and Company rate to what's called a large industrial rate. The second change or criteria that would have to be met would be that this particular business would need to be located in what's called an I-2 industrial area. They would need to use a minimum amount of water. That's 10,000 CCF, or about 7.5 million gallons of water a month. That's based on a 12-month rolling average. They would need to minimize their peaking, so they can't have wide fluctuations in their water usage. It's really just more of a flat usage. And then the other thing, or the other change that we're proposing making, is to reduce it from a 3-tier rate to a 1-tier rate. Most industries, this is a large expense for them, and so having a conservation rate in place with multiple tiers doesn't really impact the rate of water usage that they have. And as we develop that rate, or that cost of service rate, it's really based on tier 1. And so we removed that tier 2 and tier 3. That tier 1 rate, there are no changes proposed to that. Those rates were put in place in 2019. We had the last rate package we brought forward, there were no rate changes for the water division. So right now, the only customer that qualifies for this rate is Smithfield. There'll be no change to them as far as how we move forward, and we'll have the rate class in place for any business that may come forward, or any businesses that may change their business practice.
All right.
Questions?
Thank you, Trent. First, is anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? All right, councilors, do you got any questions for Trent tonight on this item? Councilor Starr?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Luber's, nice to see you again. It's been a while. So I was actually thinking about you the other day going, well, I wonder if he's still around. So it's good to be here. The second highest user in the city from Smithfield, you said there wasn't anyone else that kind of was in that rate. I mean, how close is the next customer to using that kind of volume? I guess I think of the hospitals as probably heavy users, but I don't remember. I think at one time you gave us a list of maybe the 8 or 10 top water customers for the city.
Sure, we ran the top 20 rate customers over the last 3 years, and the next highest rate user averaged between 7,000 and 8,000 CCF per month. And Smithfield, in their lowest month, is somewhere around 4 to 5 times that. So they're substantially higher as far as their usage. And you're right, it varies month to month, but those larger institutions do use water depending on which campus. So,
thank you.
Other questions for Trent? Councilor Kiley?
Yes, just want to clarify, so you eliminated tiers 2 and 3, and Smithfield never really entered into those tiers 2 and 3? They always remained in tier 1?
no, they have been in tier 2 and tier 3 occasionally over the last 3 years when we did that model run, but the level of revenue generated there was insignificant, and they're really working on water reduction programs, so it's not going to become a useful tool for us going forward.
Okay, so no significant change, in other words. Thank you.
Other questions for Trent? Councilor Neitzer, go ahead.
So just out of curiosity, historically, why is this one carved out in the first place versus just doing just straight volume like any other customer? I don't necessarily object. I'm just curious what this is.
What the large industrial rate is, or
Sure, versus just having a tiered rate for just like if you were just any other customer that happened to use a lot of water.
Sure, if you if you look at how an industrial complex runs, is they require large infrastructure to serve them, and if you can moderate your flow so that it's not peaking wildly from, if you use large amounts of flow, we have to have the infrastructure in place for that largest amount of flow. But if you can meter that flow over a period of time within that 1.5 rate period, the infrastructure has to be smaller. The other thing about an industrial complex is their usage is really predictable. So you avoid those wide swings as far as delivering water, whether it's electricity or treatment capacity, things like that. And so it really helps to moderate those rates. So when you look at it from a cost of service or the cost to supply those types of businesses, it's less expensive than serving a residential customer or a commercial customer, or those where there's large pieces of infrastructure, or you're watering your yard and using 3.5 times the amount of water that you would in the month of July than you would in the month of November.
And that's where this limit of no more than 150% of its normal 12-month, they can't have large peaks. What about, throughout the day or throughout the week? Is there any limits on that it has to stay somewhat static or averaged, or is that just because of the business model that tends to happen anyway?
Well, I think, it's always good when you run a water system not to have peaks and valleys, and those peaks and valleys during the day, particularly in the summertime, can be pretty significant. But that's really not, you really can't manage against that, against a large business. So you're really looking at those peaks on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, how they use their water, so.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Trent on this item? All right, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16 on this.
So moved. Nitzert.
Second, Kylie.
All right, motion by Nitzert, seconded by Kylie on that. Is there discussion here, council? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Jensen.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 30 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by adding Chapter 59, Water Department Regulations. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16, 2021. Sponsor, Mayor.
Good evening again, Assistant City Engineer Kurt Peppel. Item 30 is Chapter 59 is the new chapter for Water Department regulations. Like I had said earlier, that Water Department information was part of Chapter 50, and we just thought it would be prudent to get it out of Chapter 50 and create its own chapter. Beyond that, I really don't have any other information outside of what was presented before. Again, just looking to set the second reading for next week.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one? Councilors, you got any questions here? Councilor Nitzert, go ahead.
So to be clear, looking at this, you can't tell because it's just insertions. There's no substantive changes. It's just taking pieces and moving it from one section to another.
The majority, and I would say that there isn't anything that is substantive, not changing. Nick could probably go in if you would want more detail. But the main goal of the change is to just move that language out of Chapter 50 and put it in its own chapter, just like Chapter 53 is more geared towards the sanitary sewer system, creating Chapter 59 so water had its own chapter as well.
Like, for example, anything related to backflow preventers, which we do require, but there's been some, I think, concern about those in certain situations that nothing changed maybe it'd be good to.
I gotta let Nick speak to that.
Maybe the better question is there anything overall of substance that would be a change in policy?
Hey, Nick.
I guess, good evening, Nick Borns, Principal Engineer for Water, Light, and Power. I guess to answer your question, Counselor, nothing substantial. We did clarify some information. We've got some just kind of, I guess, standard operating procedures when we do backflow checks, installations, that kind of thing. We wanted to get some more clarity on some things, but those are the types of changes that we made in here, was basically just trying to be more upfront and transparent in what we're trying to provide.
And more consistent with probably what's happening in the field already
Consistent
anyway?
with business practices, correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Nick. Any other questions for Kurt or Nick on this? All right, look for a motion, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16 on this item.
So moved. Jensen.
Second, Erickson.
Motion by Jensen, seconded by Erickson on that. Any discussion here, council? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote here, please.
Council members Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Jensen.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 31, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 50, Utilities Generally. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16, 2021. Sponsor, Mayor.
Good evening again. The changes in 50 are really a lot of what 59 coming out of Chapter 50, and then just some language cleanups, just like Nick had stated, just trying to standardize some things, clarify a few things. So if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? Councilors, you got any questions here?
Move to approve.
Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Kylie, seconded by Jensen to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 16. Any discussion, council? Councilor Neitzer?
50008, liability of the city. What, can somebody maybe just comment on that? What's changing here and the reasoning?
What number was that, Counselor?
50008, liability of the city. Looks like it has to do with maybe things like sewer backups, things like that, things that may be extraordinary events.
Do you have the redlined version or just the?
Yeah, I'm looking at a red line version, and they delete backflow and add, if I'm looking at the right item. Section 5, the section 50008 of the city is amended. Are we looking at the same one?
Yeah, the liability of the city.
Page 4, bottom of page 4, if you have the red line version potentially.
So just general cleaning up of the language, is there?
Yeah, I guess I was just curious if there's any substantive changes here or what the idea is
I'm
here.
not aware of any.
This would look like things that would deal with potentially if there's some sort of failure or something, and then there's a dispute potentially between a property owner and the city as far as, I suppose, who's liable for it, so.
I guess I can't, we can come back with some more information if you would want. I can't speak to that one specifically.
Yeah, maybe just if somebody could just get back to me as to what, if anything, is changing and what the.
Okay, we can do that.
What the reasoning is. Thanks.
Certainly.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the floor to send this to second reading. Any other discussion here? Hearing none, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Jensen?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 32.
A resolution vacating a portion of the Arrowhead Parkway right-of-way as shown on Exhibit A, Track 2, Willow's Edge Addition, sponsored Mayor.
Good evening, Assistant City Engineer Kurt Peppel again. Items 32 and 33 are right-of-way vacations. They're in the same vicinity in East Sioux Falls. Veterans Parkway is just to the left, and Arrowhead Parkway on the south, and 6 Mile Road would be just to the east of this. The developer and the city worked together to submit the right-of-way vacation petition pursuant to South Dakota law and complies with the street vacation policy. No utilities exist in the area to be vacated, therefore no easements will be reserved. Approval of the vacation will just provide for a more uniform right-of-way out there and aid in the development of the area. Engineering requests your support and approval.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, got any questions for Kurt here? Look for a motion on this.
Move to approve.
All right, motion by Councilor Kylie, seconded by Councilor Erickson. Any discussion here? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Jensen?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 33, please.
A resolution vacating a portion of the Arrowhead Parkway right-of-way as shown on Exhibit A, Track 3, Willows Edge Addition. Sponsor, Mayor.
Again, this out near 6 Mile, a little bit closer to 6 Mile Road, just east of the previous item. Again, just trying to clean up some old remnant right away. And if you can look at it, how it kind of jets in and out of the property. A lot of this was some DOT acquisitions, and it just, you don't know where you're at sometimes out there. So it's good to clean them up and make them more uniform right away. It'll help the developer down the road just kind of know where they're at as well. We request your support and approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? Councilors, any questions for Kurt here? Look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Councilor Kiley.
Second.
Somebody else a chance.
All right, Councilor Kiley, make a motion to approve, seconded by Neitzer. Any discussion here, Council? All right, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
yes,
Erickson. Yes. Jensen.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 34, please.
A resolution approving the release of a portion of a permanent utility easement located in Lot 4 and Block 1 of Maple Mall Addition to the city of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, South Dakota. Sponsor, Mayor.
I think this is my last item, so.
Okay, we'll keep going, man.
Easement in question is just northwest of the I-29 and Russell Street interchange. Easement, there's no utilities within the easement area to be vacated, therefore it's no longer needed. Approval of the easement release will aid in the development of the property. Engineering requests your support and approval.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on this one tonight? All right, councilors, you have any questions for Kurt here on this item?
Move approval.
Move approval.
Second. Neitzer.
All right, motion by Jensen, seconded by Neitzer to approve this item. Any discussion here, council? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote on it, please.
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky, Erickson.
yes,
Jensen.
Yes.
All right, I think that passed 8-0. New business, any new business tonight, council? All right, not hearing any. We'll move on to public input tonight. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person. And during general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear earlier in the agenda. So at this time, I'd like to invite anyone forward for general public input. Good evening.
Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis, and I'm here to talk to you tonight and to the citizens of Sioux Falls, here to talk to us all about searches that occur at Minnehaha County Courthouse. Now, if you go there, you'll see this sign on the door, and here's the top half of the sign. So please take a quick look at that, and we'll talk about it in a little more detail. The first problem I have with the sign is that it's not really a universal search. The sign says that everybody who enters will be searched, but that is not correct, because if you're an employee of the courthouse, you have a back door, you can sneak through, and apparently that if you're powerless, well, you're stuck, and if you have power, you get away without the search. Another issue I have with the sign is that it says that searches are voluntary and that everybody who enters consents. That's not practically true, because if you are a defendant or a subpoenaed witness, you either consent to the search or the judge in the case is going to issue a warrant for your arrest, and then you get searched on the way to jail. So coercion under duress is not voluntary consent, and I'm really not happy with signs that confuse the two. And problem number 3 is related to the Constitution. I'll give you a little bit of Amendment 4 there. No warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath. That is simply not the case at the courthouse when people try to enter. There's no warrant, there's no probable cause, it's just people being searched. I think the problem here is that government, when it's overbearing, thinks that searching is always justified, and civil rights just really don't matter. So I took the liberty of rewriting the sign, and it should read, if we were going to be honest, it should read that most people who enter this courthouse will be electronically searched in violation of our Constitution. Courthouse employees are exempted from search. I don't expect anybody to put that sign up because government is not usually honest with regard to violating civil rights. Now, as always, I like to end on an upbeat note, and I took a road trip to Utah to see my daughter, and here's a scene along the way. So there you are. So have a good evening, everybody.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for general public input tonight? All right.
Move to adjourn.
Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Erickson, seconded by Jensen to adjourn our meeting. Let's take a roll call vote on that, please.
Councilmembers Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr, Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. We are adjourned, everyone. Have a good night.